There are new revelations following the Flydubai passenger plane crash in Rostov-on-Don in Russia on Saturday that killed all 62 on board at the weekend. It's being claimed now the airline's pilots are being forced to work to the brink of exhaustion, and they had warned it could lead to tragedy. Those allegations were made to RT by a former Flydubai pilot who's asked to remain anonymous.
When I was still at the company, it was one of the last things that I told management was that there would be an accident, and it would be because of pilot fatigue. The way that they build the schedules, they do not allow pilots to get the right amount of rest or the proper rest before a flight, and that is exactly what both of these pilots were, the situation that they were in, for sure. I think that there was a survey done at some point, and the company was very mad when the survey got out because they were not the ones that set it up. But one of the questions was, do you think there's going to be a crash? And over 80% of the pilots that participated, which one was me, we said yes, there will be a crash at Flydubai. And it's unbelievable. I mean, they knew this was coming. They absolutely knew it. I wish it didn't happen, and I wish it wasn't true. I personally lost friends who were crew on that airplane, but I wasn't surprised. If there's any airline in the world that has everything set up for a crash as this one, it's Flydubai.
Well, the voice you heard there, a former Flydubai pilot speaking exclusively to RT's Paula Sleer. She's in Dubai.
After the plane crashed on Saturday morning, I reached out to the crew, the pilots of Flydubai. I saw that many of them were posting messages of condolences and support online, and I was asking whether anyone wanted to talk to us. They were all afraid to talk to the media because they felt that there could be repercussions. But word got out that I was looking, and I was contacted by a former captain of the airline who is based in Doha. He told me that he had some important information to give me, and he wanted to meet with me. When I met him, he was visibly shaken. He hasn't eaten properly or slept properly since the crash on Saturday morning, and he said he was motivated to talk to RT because he knew many of those on board, and he felt that the truth needed to get out. As he put it, passengers buy a ticket, they put their life in the hands of the pilots and the crew, and they have a right, we have a right to know what is happening. He holds the management of Flydubai 100% responsible for the crash. He backed up his claims with data, including the flying schedule of the first officer. Take a look.
Neither pilot had much seniority in their seats. They were considered pretty junior. Therefore, they would have been getting pretty bad flights, long night flights, a lot of night flights. And they were probably very, very tired and very fatigued. I've been able to get the first officer's roster, and he was working 11 days in a row with the exception of one day off, which was Tuesday, March 15th. Everybody at the company has these dangerous shifts from day flight to night flight, and then back to a day flight, and then back to a night flight. And it has definitely been, you know, a big issue for a long time. I know that when I was still at Flydubai, there were meetings every 2 weeks with the chief pilot. And from what I understand, in most of those meetings, this was always brought up. And in fact, one of the meetings, the chief pilot referred to us as a bunch of prima donnas, like we complain too much. That's exactly what he said. He said, you guys are just a bunch of prima donnas.
The question of how legal are these rostering systems is exactly the question I put to this former captain. And he answered the question by saying that it is legal, but there are many things out there in the world that are legal, but are simply wrong. He said that the captain of this flight, who had already resigned and was actually on one of his last flights, one of the main reasons, if not the main reason he had resigned, was because of his flying schedule. He simply just could not keep up with it anymore. Every month, this is common practice across the airline industry, pilots need to fill in an air safety report. We have more data. We have many of those ASRs that were filled in at Flydubai. And if you look at them, you can see just how often pilots were filling in the words fatigue.
With such a high workload and jumps between days and nights, I quite simply cannot work anymore without becoming a safety risk.
I am constantly tired because of the many day-to-night body clock changes. I have no problem doing night or early morning flights. All I ask for is that there is a pattern in the roster.
It is increasingly impossible to operate safely in a habitually body clock changing roster with minimum days off to recuperate. Flight safety is being compromised by a roster which allows no proper periods of stability or recuperation.
I've been filing reports like this for a year, as of many others. It is cynical of the company in the extreme that in this period the situation has been allowed to get worse and not better.
We sent all the information given to us by the former Flydubai pilot to Russia's Interstate Aviation Committee for a start, which replied saying its experts will closely examine all the claims, but that they won't comment further until the flight data has been thoroughly investigated. Furthermore, we also asked Flydubai to comment on the revelations by its former pilot. They answered, saying the safety of their flight and cabin crews is of primary importance, and that if a member of the crew feels that he hasn't been able to have enough rest, then they are encouraging pilots to declare themselves unfit to fly. RT also asked a number of international organisations for comment too, including the Independent Pilots Association. Just 2 replied, and both refused to provide any information regarding claims of worker exhaustion. Meantime, another development, another Flydubai pilot contacted us following the initial report confirming the revelations aired on RT. He also shared some insight too into the crew of that doomed flight.
All these comments are extremely accurate and true. The pressure applied to pilots, flight and management is relentless. They will definitely fatigue. They're still the first officer's roster. I know for a fact, speaking to a close friend of his wife, she said that Alejandro didn't want to go into work that night because he was so tired. But he said, I need to go into work because we're having twins, we're going to need the money. And because if you don't go into work, about a third of our pay is made up of flying pay. So if you don't fly, you don't get paid. So many pilots have fallen asleep at the controls, but for fear of reprisal, they don't necessarily file a safety report. They say it's a non-punitive culture at Flydubai. If you report it, nothing will happen. But pilots that have spoken out have been lent on to resign and told that they'll give them the end of service benefit if they resign. Otherwise, they'll be fired.
And there's more. That pilot was not the only one who got in touch following RT's exclusive interview. Here are some more of the comments we received.
I can tell you right now that the aviation community around the world has full respect for Russia today, and I will always be thankful for this, as will the families of the victims.
I'm also a former pilot of Flydubai. I just wanted to commend you and thank you for your whistleblowing piece on another Flydubai pilot. His statements are, I am sad to say, wholly accurate.
We showed the documents outlining the pilot's grueling schedule to an aviation consultant to get his thoughts. He in turn accused the airline of exploiting its employees.
The people doing the rostering are not paying attention to the well-being of the aircrew, and therefore you keep running into chronic fatigue where they don't get enough rest. Your behavior can become more erratic. You don't think clearly, you don't monitor instruments carefully, and you can miss many things. The papers that you sent me where one of the pilots has been reporting that he cannot cope because he's not had enough time off to readjust is typical of ones we've seen in the past. They are quite frankly exploiting or making their pilots fly much longer than many other airlines who have proper fatigue management systems in place. This needs far more investigation because it might be implicated in the accident itself.